Hey, welcome to the Treehouse Athenaeum, a place to discover the tools that empower you to embrace both the beauty and challenges of personal growth. There are so many branches leading to your roots. Come on, let's explore. Today I want to talk about triggers. I've had some experiences this past, I would say, month, and with family, and just having to learn to set boundaries. And with family, it's one of the hardest, especially when you're that emotional support for your family, when you are the one who everyone comes to or relies on or leans on, because you make yourself available, because whether you have a kind heart or just to keep the peace sometimes, especially at holidays, I can imagine. But yeah, today I want to talk about how our triggers are actually our guides to our freedom, to knowing ourselves, to deepening our relationship with ourselves. So let's start with where I got inspired by this. Brianna Weist, The Mountain Is You. I don't know if, there it is. Yeah, it's coming up. This book has just been chock full of amazing little nuggets that have just really not only spurred a lot of my introspective growth and journaling prompts, but it is just invaluable to me. I have gotten so much out of this, and there's so much that I could recommend, and I probably will. Yeah, so today, triggers are guides to your freedom. And again, I really recommend this book. Let's just start with self-awareness. That's the key to our evolution. If you want to be a more well-rounded person, if you want to navigate the world better, if you want to be able to take care of yourself better, it all becomes starts with self-awareness. That's where everything begins. You got to, the begin. I forget Greek philosopher, but the beginning of all wisdom is knowing yourself, right? For me, how this came up with this triggers, again, let me talk about this past season, this last month. I've really had some unique experiences with family members, and a lot of it was honestly spurred by the election with some of them, just because it's not about the politics so much as a worldview. And being a queer person, it says a lot when someone votes or stands behind or supports a platform that is openly transphobic, racist, misogynistic. It's not politics any longer. It's a worldview thing. Like, this is a value system, like ethics and morals. So I've always clashed with some family members over this. But the second time around, it felt different. This election felt different because we've been through it before. We've been here before, and to see people openly choose it again, to choose that same, the first time I can forgive you, like ignorance is bliss. I can forgive you if maybe you just didn't understand, maybe you're hoping for something different. But we've seen what this platform does, and how it treats minorities. And anyway, so it's just non-negotiable. Human rights are not negotiable. And it blows my mind. It's so antithetical. There's such a collision there when they say one thing, but their actions do another, right? And if this was anyone else, I wouldn't tolerate it. If this was a stranger or someone at work, there would be no exception. There's no tolerance. But because it's my father or, another person in my immediate family, does that make it any less toxic or intense for me to have to be around that? When I allow these people to think that it's just politics, that it's okay, especially family members, it's almost like an act of self-betrayal. And how I figured this out is through my triggers, through these different negative emotions that are prompted or provoked, triggered, they bring out these negative emotions in us, which really are our guides or our teachers. And I know it sounds redundant, but if we can analyze or be aware enough to understand what is triggering us and why, those are secrets. Those are the keys to helping us understand who we are and what we want out of this life, what we desire, what our boundaries are, and what we find important, what we cherish and want to protect, and where we want to see ourselves, how we see ourselves. And this whole thing with the election is really, I was being triggered by my family because they say they love me and they support me, but they're not allies. Their actions say something different. And that trigger was anger, right? How can you say this, but then do something so different? My father, like, a father's supposed to protect, right? And I know everyone's just human and we all make mistakes, but this again is it's a different scenario because this is a second time, a second choosing, a second slap in the face. I get not everyone agrees on everything, but again, human rights. Ugh, I'm angry. So you can see it. Like, I'm angry right now, but that trigger is telling me something, and what it's telling me is that I am being done wrong. Like, I'm feeling angry because he is there's a lack of value being shown towards me. There's a disregard for my wellness, my safety, for the potential that could come of this election, right? And it's so much more than that. It's not just me, but it's my community, it's my friends, it's God, my friends of color, women in general, like bodily autonomy. So there's just so much there, and it rouses anger in me. It triggers me because it's wrong, it's unjust, and it's just so obvious and blatant, right? But obviously not. So anyway, this trigger is telling me, one, who I am, what I stand for, my values, why this is important to me. And if you distill it down, it's because this is not the world I want to live in. I expect more. I want to evolve beyond this. I want our society to be better. Like, this is not the America I want. This is not the society I want to my kids to be in. You know what I mean? But when we distill it down, it's really something much deeper. And I think what that goes to is that my father, these relationships, the other family members, they don't see who I am. They don't understand me. They don't hear me. They don't really know who I am, because you can't say these things and then go a whole nother way with your actions. Like, it's contradictory. So anger, and I want to talk about anger and sadness today, because these two triggers, I think, are some of the most primary, some of the most primal, honestly. Anger is so amazing. It's a healthy emotion, and I want to start there, where anger, everyone should feel anger. Anger lets us know when we've been done wrong. It lets us know our boundaries, when a line's been crossed. Anger is what helps motivate us. It rouses that call to action in us, right? There's a difference, like, there's a shadow side to everything, right? These triggers are really these negative emotions. When we don't deal with them, that's when they get toxic and negative. If you suppress your anger, then it builds into resentment, and that's a whole nother thing. That's another level. But the shadow side to anger is like aggression. Whereas when we get this anger, it's like a call to action in our body. It's like something's been wrong, someone's been done wrong, usually us, obviously, if we're being triggered. But it's that call to action, like something needs to change. It's that impetus, that energy, the catalyst that makes us want to go in a different direction or change our world or our situation, whatever that may be, whether it's in a relationship or something at work. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just have to not always fight, but you have to confront things. You have to deal with them head on, right? And anger is a big part of that. The shadow side, though, of that anger is aggression, and that's when we start taking it out on other people around us. And so that's one of the signs and the cues that you're not handling it well. You're not dealing with it appropriately, because it should be the call to motivate us, not the harm that we throw to other people, or that negativity that we put on others. In that example of my dad, that anger within me told me it was a call to action, that I need to protect myself. And even though it's family, even though he says he loves me, I understand now that he doesn't understand how to love me. He can't love me the way I need, because he doesn't see anything wrong with his behavior. So now it's up to me to love myself, to be my own parent. And that means taking myself out of the situation. And so I haven't spoken to him since election day. I don't know if it's a lack of know how or, maybe he just doesn't care, but he hasn't really come out and said, why aren't we talking? It's just he knows that I'm angry. So he knows there's a break in our connection. But rather than try and remedy it, he's just kind of letting it sit, which again tells me a lot about where he's at. I can't assume, but working through this, I realized I had to set a boundary, and that looked like withdrawing myself, taking a step back. And I really just want to encourage everyone. Holidays are some of the worst times for family just because we feel compelled and like we have to come together, that we have to show up, we have to do the family thing. But really, it can be some of the most toxic environments we immerse ourselves in all year round, needlessly, because we feel compelled, because we have to. Toxic is toxic. And I want to keep saying that and coming back to that. If you feel drained when you leave, and there's a good drain, like, high energy and expectation, like it was a lot, that was a lot, it was exhausted. But even that simple, if you leave your family experiences or you go to a friend's house and you leave that experience feeling drained, tired, less than, not lit up, not excited, not on fire, not more alive, and just, those warm, happy feelings of being seen, being heard, being validated, then that is taking away from you. That's detractive, and that says everything. Why do you surround yourself with people who take your energy, who do not build you up? If you look at it like an energetic equation, that simple, it will revolutionize your life. It's powerful when you start being selective with your energy. When I am conscious and intentional about who I surround myself and for what reasons, if you add to my life, then you get to share in this. I know what I bring to the table. I try and to build up those that I'm around, and I want the same. There's always different levels, different, I'm never, 100% on. Sometimes my friends have to pour into me more than I pour into them. There should be an equilibrium at some point, but, it's never, 50-50 completely. But that's what makes a good friendship, right? Because if you can find that middle ground, it should be supportive. It should be edifying. It should be gratifying. My relationship with my dad is not that. Like it's hollow, and it's shallow, because that's all that's available to him. He just doesn't know any different. And I have to be fair. Again, we're all human. And my needs, if no one can meet all your needs. But if I can honestly say I'm not having my needs met by someone in my life, whether they're my parent or not, I need to think of, what do I need then? What do I need? What's the next step? And that anger tells me that I am putting myself in communication in a space with someone who doesn't value me, who doesn't respect me, who doesn't see me. And that's not okay. I'm at a point in my life, it's not okay. Like I'm done there. I know my value. I know my worth. Why am I entertaining this anymore? It's taking my energy. It's zapping me. So I had to put down a boundary. And that boundary, for me, looked like silence. It looked like a pulling back of my energy. I've said this so many times to people since the election. It's just like, we know better now. We know what it was and what to expect. But this was a choice. People are choosing to live in this world, to create this world, to allow this intolerance, this bigotry, this vile vitriol, the misinformation. People are choosing it boldly, like obstinately, unbelievably. Sorry, I'm mad, angry. But it's a choice. And so I need to make the choice for me not to tolerate it. And what does that look like? I'm not going to, go start fights and stuff. It's so simple. It's, if they want to choose this darkness, then I'm going to remove my light. That simple. If you choose this, if you want this world, if you don't see the value and beauty in your neighbor, or allowing your neighbor to just be because they are of value on their own, they are enough on their own, if they're not hurting you, and you don't see that, then I don't think you deserve the light that we bring. And so it's that simple. I'm going to remove my light from their world, and that's my energy. And so I've gone silent, and it's in his text. It's bothered him. He said he's sad about it, but not sad enough to make it right. Not sad enough to reach out and open a dialogue about this, which tells me that I know what I'm doing is for a reason, and my choices are right and sound for me, you know? I'm curious how that sits with you guys. If you have any life experience, or maybe you've had a recent experience, we all have that drunk uncle, or that angry aunt, or, racist grandpa. But I'm curious on how you see this applied in your life. This anger trigger often parlays into the other trigger I want to talk about, which is sadness. And there comes, when you put these boundaries down, I had to put this boundary down with my family just because it's a self-preservation. It's not to punish. It's not to make him feel bad or stick it to him. It's self-preservation. It's protective. I'm guarding myself. I'm honoring myself so I don't betray myself by allowing someone to hurt me like this, right? So with that trigger, there also comes the next trigger, which I wanted to talk about, which is sadness. And there's a grieving period. There's a loss. When I made this decision, I had to realize that it potentially won't culminate in, say, a happy ending. There might not be a consensus or an agreement, or this could be a shift, a fundamental shift in my relationship with a significant family member, so my father. And again, there's a spectrum and everyone's got different relationships. The trigger of sadness is really me mourning what this relationship could have been. And there's a lot of wisdom in this piece too. Our sadness shows us what we desire. And what I desire fundamentally at the base of all this is my father to understand and know who I am, right? But that's not possible. So there's where he's at now. People can change, people can grow, the likelihood, given the situation. There's a lot of levels to that, but again, at its core, it's telling me what I desire. And what I desire is to be around people who see me and validate me and who honor and respect who I am as a person. For me, being me. That's what I want to do for others. That's what I do for others. I want that back. And so the sadness piece is the grieving the loss of that potential that might not be there. I can't wait around for it. I have to protect myself emotionally. And I will say, this fuck you attitude season era I'm in right now is it's glorious, because while I get sad here and there, I'm like, oh, I have so much more energy. And it's empowering at the same time to know your worth and to stand in it. And I really want to just encourage you for there too. It isn't just loss and sadness, and there is an empowerment that comes on this other side too, of when you release, this is the law of attraction in essence. It's a spiritual truth. When you release and shed those things that are no longer serving you, you hear that buzz term, I release things that don't serve me anymore. But it's really like that. Once you let go of something, especially something that's toxic or it's causing, negative emotions within you, you make room for the better, the good, the glorious to come. You make room for good energy and people who do see you and who respect you, and those relationships in your life, that energy in your life to come in. And that's why we do it. That's part of the evolution. That's part of the leveling up, the growing as a human being, knowing what you need, knowing your worth, and then growing from it, opening up, expanding. That expansion that includes more. Yeah, it sucks. It hurts that I can't have this relationship with my dad. But it is what it is, right? And again, he's a human. I'm a human. I make mistakes. I have to give him the grace to do that too, but I don't have to tolerate it either. And that's a very, very important piece I want to drive home right now is loving someone. You can love someone from afar. You can love someone and still love yourself. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to keep the peace. You can love someone and not talk to them ever again. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away to end something, because that teaches people the consequence, or I don't want to say consequence, but it's consequences. When people make choices like, me and my father, this other family member, when they make choices and say things or do things that show me that they don't understand me, and they are supporting things that are actively working against me, then the consequence of that is I remove myself and they don't get me in their life. And sometimes that's the only way people can learn, if they aren't empathetic enough or if they're not open-minded enough. And that is prevalent right now, I think, just in society, period, all over the world. But I come from a family where I had to keep the peace. Emotionally, I had to be, the one who regulated the temperature, because it was a really volatile environment. My parents always fought, and the energy, you never knew one day getting up what it would be, like if there would be a major fight, or if there would be a throwdown, or just it, it was emotionally taxing. But because of that, I've learned from an early age that I had to mitigate people's emotions, and I had to put my emotions, my feelings, and what I needed in that moment emotionally to the side in order to keep the peace. Peace at any price is a catchphrase I gotten out of therapy. And it's so poignant. If you've been in an experience like this, or you come from a home like this, I know this is resonating with you, because you still carry those behaviors into your relationships, into your romantic relationships, into your relationships with your children, because it's a cycle, it's a pattern. And when you suppress or don't let your authentic emotions, come out, then it's got to go somewhere, and that turns into something else. You know what I mean? Whether that's resentment, or if that's neglect, like emotional neglect, like if your needs aren't being met. So this peace at any price, it took me a long time to realize what my emotions were, and to get in touch with them, and to how to recognize them. And now in my 40s, I'm still unlearning these behaviors that have completely been a part of my life without me even knowing often. I want to give one more example about this trigger of sadness and the grieving process that comes with it. Sadness obviously comes the majority of the time in the aftermath, when we're disappointed. It's the realizing that what we wanted, the future we saw, or the vision of what we were hoping for isn't going to come. If the reality is not meeting the expectation. Just like anything, like a death of anything, there's a grieving, an acceptance, that has to come with this. And the only way to get through that sometimes is, like the majority of the time, is just to sit with it, to allow it to be, and to find that peace that comes in it. With every ending, there's also a new beginning. And that's where I find the light in a lot of these situations. My relationship with my dad may not be what I want it to be, but I know that I can give myself what I need. And that's the validation and the protection that I deserve, and the respect that I know I am, worthy of. So it's hard letting these things go, but that's part of the process, and that's what makes all of this amazing too. Like, this is how we learn our value. This is how we learn our strength, because you do heal, you do move on, you do find, there is another tomorrow. And I know that sounds so trite, but really there is better waiting for you once you allow yourself to receive it. And that part is like understanding and processing that this is only one aspect of me. It's not who I am. And again, like I said, that empowerment piece, yes, it's sad that I won't have this, but I'm also very proud of who I am and standing in my truth and knowing that better relationships are out there and are around me. You know, if I focus on them, they're always around me. There's people in my life who do love me, who do support me, who would go to bat for me, who would show up for me and like take a bullet for me, you know? Like it just there are amazing people. So reorienting that perspective on those who do love me and what I do have, that heart energy, that heart spirit of gratitude, if you can remain in that, it's just the power that comes with it, the joy and the peace. And that's the biggest thing, the peace that comes with this. Yeah, it's sad. I was angry, but now that I've acted on it, now that I'm on the other side, I have peace because I know I honored myself. I know I've done what I needed to keep myself safe. I I love. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out, the Disney movie, where the emotions living in her head and like they all serve their purpose. And in essence, if you haven't seen it, sadness, one of the, or I should say, happiness and sadness, obviously, are foils. They're set up that way, but happiness is always trying to be in control. Everything should be happy, 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 happy. And if we're sad, then it's not a good thing, right? And so the movie comes out, and it's actually sadness that brings a lot of the healing. It brings empathy. It brings people together to help support, and it brings love to us. You know, what I mean, there's vulnerability is power in essence. And I always think of Brene Brown when she says that our vulnerability is what makes us stronger. It's our superpower because it's in that vulnerability that real strength lies. Not, it's the, what's the word I want? Like not versatility, but it's what allows us to be resilient, to grow stronger because when we sit with that sadness, and when we are vulnerable with others and we allow ourselves to be open and candid and to show our weakness, to show that we don't have it all together, that we don't know what's going on, or I don't have a great idea of what I'm supposed to be doing or how to navigate this situation, it's in that vulnerability that we're able to draw what we need and we can learn and we can find the support we need. And then that builds resilience and confidence. And the idea of perfection is so ridiculous because nothing's she always says, Brene Brown, we're perfectly imperfection, perfection through imperfection. Like, what is perfect in the universe? Nothing is perfect. So why would we put that standard on ourselves as well? And this trigger of sadness, I think, is really powerful too, when we are longing for something that we want or grieving what we wanted. That's when I know who I am, what's important to me, what I really desire, what I'm looking for, what I need, what are my needs that aren't being met. So I just want to encourage you to sit with the sadness. It's so hard for me. It is uncomfortable and it's painful because I like to move on. But I found myself in this season where I'm having to sit with these things, these darker parts, these shadow aspects more than I have in years. And it's just uncomfortable and so gross. And it's hard. It's hard to see your ugly and to sit with your ugly sometimes, but it's part of me. It's who I am. It's my shortcomings. It's my failures. But these failures are what teach me what I want and which way to go next. If this door closed, there's a reason, because that's not authentic to me. The point of all these triggers and all this experience and this self-evolution is to really understand who we are authentically and what resonates with us at our purest vibration, at our center, at our core. What is who we really are if you distill it all down. So I just want to encourage you to be aware, be mindful, So next time you're in the grocery store and someone says something off color and it like gives you a reaction, or your mom just says the wrong thing and it really irks you, sit with that. Be curious, be open-minded, and explore that a little. Just try and be objective. Like, I wonder where that came from. What's going on there? Why does that feel like that? Notice it in your body. Your body tells you, is it in the chest? Is it in the shoulders? Is it in the head? It's like, where's this emotion coming from? Those are hints. Your body's telling you what you need to know. And if the more aware we become about this exploration, this understanding of us, the more power that we'll get out of it, the more life-changing aspects we'll understand to help us navigate in the future. So I love you, and I may not know you, but that doesn't change anything. I am so thankful for this opportunity and to be able to talk to others and to share a bit of me. So I hope you have a good night. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good week.
Thanks for joining us in the treehouse today. If you enjoyed your time here, can you do us one little favor and send this episode over to someone else who might need to hear it? We love ratings, reviews, and recommendations. We appreciate you so much. Have a gorgeous day.